Hey everyone, my name is David Rao and I'm the music teacher who blogs at makemomentsmatter.org. You can also find my ideas on Twitter, on Pinterest, on YouTube, Instagram, a variety of other places when you search for my name, David Rao, or Make Moments Matter. I'm excited tonight to be sharing some of my lesson ideas for end of year when you're sort of scrambling for what's gonna work, what's gonna keep kids engaged and keep them active and also keep them interested and not drive both them and me crazy. So I'm going to share some of the ideas that I'm using in my classroom right now, right this week, and things I plan to use in the next coming weeks as we sort of wind down this crazy, weird school year. A couple quick reminders. So if you're watching and you hear me talk about a resource or a video or anything that you're like, ooh, that sounds cool, where can I find that? I've dedicated a whole page on my blog to the links and resources I talk about in these videos, so you can go to my blog, makemomentsmatter.org, click the video tab, and there's a drop down. You can choose the 2020-2021 school year, or you can just click, if you're on Facebook, YouTube, my podcast, listening to this, watching this, the bottom link on the caption for this video is a direct link to that links page. Instagram, it's on my LinkedIn profile. So if you hear anything and you're like, ooh, that's cool, where can I find that? I hopefully have found a link to that and put that on my links page. And if not, send me a message and I will add that in. Okay, a couple more quick things before I start sharing about lesson ideas. Next week is my last Musical Mondays for the semester. So I'm going to be posting on my Facebook group, Every Moment Matters, Music Education Community, and also on my Facebook page and stuff, a place for you to ask questions. If you're like, hey, what's your favorite this resource, or what's something that's worked really well, or I have questions about this specific thing, or you talked about in this video, blah, 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 blah. If you want me to answer any questions, I'm going to try and do some of that next week because it's my last Musical Mondays video for the semester. So if you check out my Facebook page, the post is not up there yet, but I'm going to add it in so you can ask any sort of questions you want, or just send me a direct message or an email. Happy to compile those and try and answer those next week. This Saturday, if you're a teacher in Mississippi, I really hope you'll tune in to the Mississippi Music Educators Association. I'm doing 4 workshops, 3 in the morning and a double long extra one in the afternoon for Mississippi Music Educators. So if you're coming to that conference, yay! And if you're a Mississippi educator and you haven't signed up yet, I think there's still time. I hope. But I hope you'll join us this weekend for that. And one more thing. Basically a week from tomorrow is May 4th. And a lot of people do Star Wars stuff because May the 4th be with you. So for today and tomorrow, I put anything in my store that's space or Star Wars or Star whatever related, I put it on sale. So if you're interested in any of that, interactive games, centers, bulletin boards, I've tried to find everything that's Star related. If you find something in my store you're like, this is Star related, and it's not on that sale, let me know and I will I'll mark it down on sale. But today and tomorrow, Monday, Tuesday of this week, they're going to be on sale. Because next week is Star Wars, so if you want to plan that out, you could do that. Okay, cool. I think that's everything I wanted to talk about, housekeeping before I got started. So I'm in the point. Let's talk about lesson plans. So I'm in the point of the year where things are just crazy. Kids are winding down. There are all those weird day of service or field days coming up or all sorts of stuff that sort of disrupt the schedule. Kids are just anxious. It's also the end of the year, and with COVID and everything else, everyone's feeling things. So I need lessons that I know are going to work, and lessons that I think are actually going to help my students and help them sort of stay active and yet also have a really good time. And so I wanted to share just 4 different things I'm doing, and you can use them at different grade levels depending on what you want to do, how you want to use the resource, how you want to take that lesson and steam ahead with it. So I'm just going to share what I'm doing and how I plan to use it, or how I am currently using it. And of course you can modify any way that you want. So there are 4 different things I'm going to talk about. First, I'm going to talk about a resource based on instruments and critical thinking, spotlight on the instruments. Then I'm going to talk about 4th grade Chrome MusicLab and how I'm using that. going to talk about second graders, how I'm using my interactive games and also my word wall set. Or just my word wall set, just my word wall, and using an interactive game to make that a little bit more fun and exciting. And then mystery instrument game. Ooh, can't wait. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is this resource I have called Spotlight on the Instruments. Now, I'm looking at the copyright. I'm like, oh my gosh, I made this in 2015. I was so young and so like such a newbie back then. But I made this resource in 2015. It was right off of an extended time studying critical thinking, and I was working on how to integrate instruments in a active and authentic way. I was really trying to find resources to do that, and at the time I couldn't really find anything that worked well, and so I made this resource and I put it out, and I wanted to share how I'm using it now, and sort of ways you can expand upon it if you want. So last Friday I was out, I had to have a sub, I was going through my sub drawer and I found this resource again, and I was like, oh yeah, cool, okay. And I remember I had like used it in class, and then it also said, well, you could use it for a sub, I suppose. So I put some things in there, and so I pulled it back out and I was like, I could totally use that. It's something that in this COVID year, you know, like there's so many lessons you can't do, or things that are just hard to adapt, and this is one that's really pretty simple to adapt. When I made this years ago, it started with seeing these posters in the hallway and getting sort of jealous. So like my kindergartners would always like have these posters that were like, read all about me, so that like the kid could like put their photo on. Yeah, you've seen those before? Like kids put like their photo on the big poster, and then they get to like write in like, my favorite color is, and I have these siblings, and you know, my favorite food is blah blah blah, and my family is, you know, like it's information about the kid. It makes them feel like they're like the student of the week or whatever. And I used to have a kindergarten teacher who would do that every week, and one kid would like take home this huge poster thing, and they would come back, and it would hang out in the hallway every week, and it was like their picture and their favorite stuff and whatever. I thought those were so cool. And then I was like, how can I, and then I saw other teachers doing similar sort of stuff, and I was like, how can I make this sort of musical and interesting? And so I came up with a set of posters called Read All About Me, because that's like sort of what the kindergarten posters, I don't remember if that's exactly what it said, but it's the gist of like, read about, you know, my favorite stuff. So on each one, I basically like pretended that the instrument was a child. And like, what would you say about it? So on the poster, it has like the instrument name, right, when it was born, and so for the instruments that becomes really interesting. So like the trombone, like born 1400s, right, or like the snare drum, 1400s to 1500s. So some of them you can't really pinpoint exactly when it was created or who did. So for some of them, like the saxophone, you can be like, bam, got it. But others, not so much. Or like the flute, when's the approximate time that it was created? 433 BCE is like the first sort of known like time when it was first recorded that was made. So where is it born? What about my family? So it'll tell you like the woodwinds family or the percussion family. Talks about the family. Other members in my family, because all these poster sets say that, like my sister Lindsay and my brother Dan or whatever. So this says like other members of my family: piccolo, clarinet, saxophone, oboe, and it sort of helps kids place in that family, where does this instrument fall. And then it says I play mostly in. And so like the flute, and this is tricky because instruments are played in all sorts of different ways in all different settings. But this specific one says like, I play mostly in marching bands, concert band, folk music, and orchestras for the flute. Okay, yeah. I mean, you could put jazz flute, but like, that's not as often as some of the things. Snare drum, this one is really fun. Marching bands, concert bands, rock bands. And so that's all just sort of up here in the top. And then below, this is my favorite things. Okay, and this was just like silly to make. So like for the flute, my favorite things: playing light, sweet melodies, going high and low. I have 3 octaves. My close cousin, the piccolo, playing fast music. So like I'm reaching here, but like, okay, those are things that the piccolo does. Or like trombone, sliding from note to note, hitting all those low notes, marching up and down the field, and playing loud music. Okay, who? If you're a trombone player, be honest. You like playing the loud, blasty parts. I sat in front of trombones, or I marched in front of trombones for a long time. I know that's true. And then it has fascinating facts, because all those posters have like fun facts you wouldn't know about me or whatever, right? This was actually really fun doing this for the instruments. So like trombone, I'm the only brass instrument without valves. Instead, I have a long slide that helps me change notes. Beethoven was the first composer to write me into an orchestra. I debuted in his Fifth Symphony. If you unwound me, I'd be 9 feet long. That's a lot of tubing. I was originally called the sack butt. So it has these little fun facts, you know, like for the flute. George Washington, James Madison, and Leonardo da Vinci all played the flute. I'm the bird and Peter and the wolf. I'm just trying to get things that like kids can sort of connect with and think are fun. So originally this was just like a bulletin board, just like a poster set. And then I was like, but how else can you use that? Like, how else can it be used? Because if you're going to, you know, have the bulletin board set, what else? So then, because I had done this class on critical thinking, I was trying to figure out, like, how can I integrate more critical thinking? I've already had this poster set. What else can I do with it? So I wanted to start doing more lessons where the kids had to sort of think about how are instruments similar or different, because there's a lot of value in finding how two things that seem sort of similar, how you can compare and contrast, finding specific things that make them similar and finding things that make them different. Why is this important? Well, it does help students find and notice differences. It can help them start to understand how instruments could be high or low depending on their size. It can help them understand, especially with brass instruments, like how the tubing plays a part. It helps them understand the science of the instrument, but also it helps them really differentiate. Like when I teach instruments of the orchestra, or just instruments, when I teach different instrument families, I like to talk about like all the things that make them different. So when I was growing up, you know, we learned all the brass instruments, like these are the ones in the poster, and we like learned them, right? But we didn't learn why they're in the brass family. And woodwinds, like these are the woodwind instruments. We didn't really learn why they're the woodwind instruments. And there's more than just, well, some are made out of brass and some are not. Because it's way more complicated than that, right? So there are all these indicators to what makes a brass instrument. The mouthpiece shape. The fact that there's only one place for air to go in and one place for air to come out. It goes in the mouthpiece, it comes out the bell. There are no holes anywhere else along the tubing. There's a lot of tubing, right? And woodwinds are contrast, you know, like all the mouthpieces can be different depending instrument to instrument. You know, there are holes along the bore, and so lots of places for holes. That's why there are all those keys and pads. You know, the shape is very different. It's usually just one long straight shot. So like there are all these things that are different. So I wanted kids to start finding and recognizing those similarities and differences. And so one of the things that we did was when in this critical thinking class that I took, and then was also a TA for the following summer, we talked a lot about Venn diagrams. How can you help kids sort of spot and find differences? So for this one specifically, I just chose two instruments. It's like trumpet, saxophone, or trumpet and trombone. That's especially fun in like interfamily, compare and contrast. Violin, harp. So like to have them sort of think about how are the shapes different, how do they look different, all sorts of things, and then they could go compare with the posters, right? So like the posters that like they'll read all about me that are already up on the wall, they could go and like gallery walk is what, you know, sometimes people would say back in the day. I don't know, do people still say that? I don't know. Where you like walk around and sort of like get facts and walk around and understand as you go. So we had the Venn diagrams. Well, then from the Venn diagrams, you can actually put that into writing. So then there's a little sheet that says like, how are we similar, how are we different? And you can like take that Venn diagram information and put it into a written form. Something that looks like more like what they would see in the classroom. This is cool because it gives you artifacts. So what you could do is you could have the Venn diagram with the worksheet, right? You could have them go together, and you could either put them as artifacts for like your evaluation. You could put them as artifacts of, well, we do writing in the music room. That's not just writing music notes, even though I think that should really count, but whatever. Because, you know, some schools are like, you must have formal writing. Okay, so like this can go in there. This could go as something that goes home to parents. It could go into, I always think it's a great idea to have some sort of writing element in a substitute teacher lesson, because a lot of times substitute teachers, if they're not music people, they're more comfortable doing those things that like maybe they do in a regular ed classroom. So to give them like a writing lesson that is music themed, they're way more comfortable teaching that or giving supports or giving, you know, differentiated instruction than they are maybe actually doing like the music part, if that makes sense. So I love including things like this in a subtub. But I mean, it could also be for a wall display. It could be for artifacts that you bring back for concerts. I mean, there's so many things you can do with this. But this was just sort of like the vehicle that I used. Okay, and there's another little part here. You could also, instead of compare and contrast, you could have them, you could give each kid an instrument and do this other thing, which is like spotlight on just that instrument. So they could actually, this is like taking the information about the snare drum, synthesizing and making it into like a different form. So like where they see it here, you know, like this is like fun little facts and tidbits and little details. This is like a written explanation that sort of synthesizes, rethinks, and retools and puts it in a different form. This is something that they do in their regular ed classroom, depending on, you know, your state, your grade level, whatever. They do this sort of thing, and so it's fun for them to name it and then give those supporting details along the way. And I found that like my homeroom teachers like when I do this. And I like to check in with them and be like, what's the sort of language you use? What's the prompt word? What's like the sentence stem that you might use to give kids that prompt of like, here's how we're gonna take that information and run with it. So those are all just things that like honestly, it started with a bulletin board. It started with these Read All About Me posters, and it just sort of spiraled from there. So I have the posters printed and laminated. I also can set them like in my sub folder so that like the sub can take them and use them. She could or he could take them and pass them out to students. There's a lot you can do with them if you have the resource there, like printed or on a, you know, a file ready to go. Along with that, because why not keep expanding on that, I was also doing a little bit with like creative writing and how do you take that critical thinking and make it into like more of a narrative, because again, I was told that year, like, you gotta have a narrative, you gotta have like narrative writing, you gotta have what, I mean, they were very specific about like the kind of writing things that we had to have included. So this comes with like a dear teacher, here's how you might use it, here are the resources, and in here, I won't go into this too much because I'm ready to, I want to talk about Chrome MusicLab, but it has instructions, so this is great to like leave for a sub or great for you to use to like if you want students to, or if you want to use this with students, it's good to like have an idea or an example, I guess. So in this, there's the tell me all about you know, your creative writing, like the instrument's going to go out on the town, you know, what are they going to do? And so like this specific one, I guess I didn't print that part out. There's like, Mrs. Cello steps out on the town. Where's she gonna go? What's she gonna do? It gives some like little stems and ideas. So like, what are they trying to do? Why they're going out on the town? Tell me the most exciting places they visit. The problems they have getting to their destination. What the weather's like. What they eat. And it's all sort of themed around that specific instrument. Like, where's this instrument going? Why would it be going there? Oh, the cello's gonna go to get restrung, or the cello's gonna go visit its cousin the violin or whatever. And it gives kids like a fun way to take that information that they know and rethink it in a new way, because for some kids the like the worksheet where they take and synthesize the facts and just give you, you know, this spotlight worksheet, for some kids this is great and they will do fine and they will excel. For other kids, they need the creative writing aspect. They need to be more free with what they're doing. They can still take that information and add it in, but if it's in a narrative, for some kids that just makes all the difference, as opposed to just fact or just like dry reimagining of that information. So for some kids, this is really exciting. So there's another one, stepping out on the town, which is another one like where are they going, who do they meet, what are they trying to do, but it's, you know, less specific. Is one instrument, it could be a group of instruments, it could be whatever you want. And then I add sentence starters for kids. I had a lot of English language learners when I made this set, and so I knew that like some of them would need this. So like, Mrs. Piccolo needed to visit blah blah blah, or the weather outside was stormy, so Mr. Triangle decided to blah blah blah. So it gives kids an idea of like where they could start, sort of giving them an idea of where they could go with this story if they wanted. And then another prompt that you could put with the post, if you wanted to hang out in the hallway as a bulletin board, you could do that. My principal was big about like student examples in the hallway, and I was like, it's sort of hard for me to do that. So this was a way for me to like add a little context to anything I put out in the hallway. And then another one, like if you wanted to have them take that fact about the family they're a part of and tell me about it. So like this one, it like talks about the family and like what they do, and mom, dad, brothers, sisters, grandma, grandpa, uncles, aunts, how the instruments get along, family game night, playing together, blah, 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 and another set of sentence starters. That's all in there if you're interested, but it's just a way to like take that information in sort of a new way, and you could reuse it. Like I'm gonna have in my lessons coming up, like there are gonna be some like weird one-off days where like we should have a 5-day rotation, but this class is gonna get a 6th day, or maybe just this one homeroom is gonna get an extra, you know, because the way schedules flex and change and do weird stuff. And so these sort of activities are a way for me to they're a way for me to take the information and the things we've already learned and sort of like reimagine and reuse them in another way, so that you know, we're still getting some of that great content, but also like not super bored and not just sitting playing instrument bingo or whatever. You could do that for part of the time and then do this for part of the time. It gives you a few more options. Okay, so that's all from a resource called Spotlight on the Instruments, and that I put a link to that on the links page if you're interested, or if you have questions, shoot me a message about that. I want to talk about Chrome MusicLab because I have always wanted to use it, and I have not really used it until now. Because Chrome MusicLab, like I see all the fun splashy things on Facebook, I'm like, ooh, and I went and tried it. And my worry with things like Chrome MusicLab, GarageBand, music apps in general is like, I get this like worry of like, fun to explore, but what are they gonna do with it? Because exploration is cool, but exploration just for the sake of exploration is cool, is great, is needed, but then I want to have like a follow-up, like, and then here's how we're going to apply. So because if you just explore just to explore, then it's easy to get lost and not take that knowledge or that exploration and like use it. And so GarageBand is a great example. With my students, we had some time to explore and try, and then we had an application version of that. I talked about that several weeks, months, I don't know, this year feels like forever. Years ago, I don't know, the 2020-2021 school year is like 7 years long. So like 3 years ago in this school year, I talked about how I use GarageBand and gave it a little bit more focus. So I want to talk to you about how I'm using Chrome MusicLab, because again, it took me a little bit to be like, okay, how am I going to do this to give it more focus? Because if you've used Chrome MusicLab, you know that there are some parts that are like, ooh, wow, cool, I can build a lesson around this, and some parts that are like, no. So I want to share a little bit more about that. And so I'm going to do that thing where I try and flip my screen to show you my iPad, and it always works so well. It never works. So just give me a second, and I'm going to pull it up here. And yes, you're going to see my cool and messy office. I know you're so excited about that. Okay, so let me flip the screen and show you sort of what I'm doing with, ooh, hey. Okay, sorry, let me turn this off here. Okay, there is my dark iPad. Oh, okay, and then I gotta zoom in here. Look, you're getting a really great view of me reflected. Okay, let me come around here and show you all what I'm doing. So my students all have iPads, and I specifically started this with my kids who are remote, my 4th graders who are remote. And so basically what I needed something that I could use with them that they could still do like while we're still just Zooming. I'm trying to make sure y'all can see this. And I wanted to use Chrome MusicLab. I've wanted to use it for a long time, but like how? So this is sort of like what I'm doing with them. But it all started with my kids who are remote first, because I do have one homeroom of that in 4th grade, one in another grade, one in another grade. So if you go to Chrome MusicLab, which you can just search that in Google, Chrome MusicLab, or you can actually, there's a link to that on my links page. What you see is this, and it's a bunch of little, it says experiments. It's a bunch of little sort of one-off activities, and what do you do with each one? Well, there are a lot of different things you can do. So let me show you a couple fun ones. So this one is sort of based around Kandinsky, the artist who had a condition called synesthesia, where your senses are connected in different ways. So basically, like, he could hear color, or whenever he would hear a sound, he could see a color. Like his sense of sight and his sense of hearing were connected. So what this does is you draw, and you can draw whatever you want. I'm going to try and turn up the sound here. Draw whatever you want, and it'll play like a sound to go along with that image. And you can change the colors, because different colors would have different effects. Oh, that's what I just had. Now, this is not specifically what Kandinsky would see, necessarily. This is not like Kandinsky vision, but it's like based on that idea of like sound and hearing being connected. So it's sort of a cool thing, and you can start over and you can clear things out. Yeah, you can hit reset up here and it'll give you a new one to reset the canvas. Super fun. You could make a connection with your art teacher and like talk about how you could talk about Kandinsky. There's actually a book called, well, no, I don't have a Kandinsky book that's music necessarily related, but I was thinking there's another book I have that's sort of similar. I'll have to dig that up and pull that out. But it's a super fun one. You could like talk with your art teacher if you wanted, right? Okay, what else? Let's see. This is a super fun one that did not work on Zoom. But what it did was you press and hold and it, okay. You let it, come on. You let it record your, okay, see, now it's not going to work while I'm on here. But it records your voice. Let me see if I can refresh and try this again. It records your voice and it lets you play back. Hello? Yeah, see, I don't know why it's not recording right now, but it lets you, change the speed of speech, and you can also do it backwards. So it's sort of a cool thing. I was able to record my voice this morning when I was not Zooming with one class, and then of course when I tried to Zoom, it didn't work. So if you know the way to get to work while you're on Zoom, let me know, because it'd be fun to be able to show them that. They were able to do it on their own, but I wasn't able to like demo that. There's some things in here that are like cool, but are more like the science of sound, like this one. Hello. Okay, so it talks about harmonics, and up here there's a little question mark, and it gives you, it does give you a little bit more of an explanation, so it gives you more of like the lesson insight. So this one says the harmonic series is a set of frequencies within a simple relationship, twice as fast, 3 times as fast, 4 times, and so on. Musical intervals emerge from this natural phenomenon, such as the octave and the major chord, like the opening notes of Star Spangled Banner. Cool! Not really applicable for elementary, like that is not digestible for them, but they will do this. They'll play and they'll be like, oh, cool sounds, next. I mean, but like, so it's a cool thing, and it's great if you want to talk about in harmonics or if you have a high school class or something like that, but it's not necessarily as helpful for what I'm personally trying to do. This one was like, oh, cool, that'll be fun. Like, it looks cartoony. What can you do with that? Okay, well, this, it's if we hit the little lesson idea, it says like it's talk about oscillators, which like how do you make a sound and the frequency, and you can drag up and down to change the oscillator's frequency. So let's look at it. So you could for sure do that on a quick lesson about like high and low and like how it changes the sound or whatever. But if you're actually going to talk about like oscillations, I don't think my 4th graders are going to care about what that means, you know, and I don't think that's going to connect up to any sort of science vocabulary. If their teacher is teaching about that, probably they've already found Chrome MusicLab and are talking about this. But again, not super helpful for what I want to do. This one's pretty, but again, it's not. I haven't found a way to be like, this is the perfect way to use this, so I don't really use it quite as much. Thank you. You can change where you are. So it arpeggiates, and you can actually change. Yeah, there's a different version. So you could definitely build a song out of that. You could talk about chord progressions like if you really wanted to. It's cool. You could change from harp to different instruments. Sorry, to piano. Yeah, you can change the speed. This is a cool way to talk about speed. It shows fast and slow, gives them a number, is a really great visual. That's cool, right? But again, not really like, this is the perfect lesson for this thing, and I know exactly, you know, like, anyway, it's fun. But what have I used? Two things I have used. I've used the little, the rhythm, and this is fun because you can build a rhythm. This reminds me of GarageBand, but in a little bit more of an accessible way. Because if you use the GarageBand beat sequencer for the iPad app, this is like, it gives you like a beat, and you could see, and you could hear how your beat changes along the like timeline. But what this does is it gives you the visual down here, and then the little characters play it. So there's bottom line is for one timpani, the other one is for the other timpani, and then there's a line for the triangle. Kids can absolutely see this and hear and make the connection between the written notation and what they hear. Have them bring headphones. This one is annoying. Okay, so that's a pretty easy thing for them to do. You can also have them change to other instruments. So there's a drum, snare drum, hi-hat, and tom. This one is tempo blocks and claves, congas, and a cowbell. So the cool thing is that like there's a different set of beats here. There's a different set of beats here. A different sort of number setup. Well, let me switch over. And the other cool thing is that this is like set up. There's a line, so it's like 1 2 1 2 1 2. This one is 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. Okay, hold on. Let me get to it something different. Okay, so that's not a good example. I was trying to think of like how they're sort of set up in different ways. This one has a sort of more simple 1 2 1 2 that gives you like a strong beat, weak beat, I guess. And then here we get into way more complex 1 2 3 4 5, and then even more 1 2 3 4 5 6. So it gives them more complexity depending on the level. Let's go back. What I am using are two other things. There's you could use the Melody Builder. That's pretty fun and easy. But I like to use the Song Maker because we've also talked about, like when we did the building of things in GarageBand, this is like a sort of a simplified, different way to look at it. And it's been pretty fun for kids to try. So what you can do to get started is just like, you can draw anything, and then it'll go along and it'll play whatever you've created, right? Well, this is just me messing, right? So there is value in that, absolutely. But then I would talk with kids about like, how else can you develop a song? Well, I could do this. And kids see my name, Rao. Okay, sorry, that's not a very good O. Sorry. Okay, so kids see my name, Mr. Rao, right? And then I let it play my name. And I say, okay, cool. Is it cool? And they're like, yeah, that's cool. I was like, okay, now close your eyes and listen to it. And then we listen to it. I'm like, is it as cool? They're like, yeah. Okay, and then you can change the sound. Is that still cool? It's maybe. So strings. Okay, the strings is interesting. Is the woodwinds version interesting? Yeah, maybe. Right. So then you can talk about like why this is fun. It's fun because it's like a sonic representation of my name, right? But if you want to go for something that's like sounds good. It's hard to do this quick. So like if you could build out. You can build out things that are actually like more interesting, like musically, like you could start building in some things. Okay, that's probably not gonna sound great. Right, so then I'll be like, oh, okay, well then how can I change it? So, but what I'm doing with students is I try to like show them different things. Why do I like this? Why do I not like this? I try and give them examples and reasons. I talk about how I would change maybe the speed, right? How does that change things? Ooh, I don't like it as fast. Okay, because it's just hard to hear things. Ooh, and that's maybe too slow. Okay, so like talking through, this is called a think aloud. Basically, you're giving kids insight into what you're choosing and why. So for this one specifically, I would talk about like, okay, well, it's fun to just see the colors, but if I just like mash the whole board and make everything colorful, then nothing stands out, nothing makes sense. So I'm trying to like making patterns, things that I think sound good. Why do I like that? I'm messing with the settings, sure, so that I can hear the differences and decide what I really like. One of the things that's really cool about this for kids that they get real jazzed about is that they like to save things. They like to keep it and show it off. So down here there's a save button, and a couple cool things you can do. You can send the link to somebody, and so like a parent or a friend or whatever, they can go to that link and see it. You can also download a MIDI file, you can download a WAV file. So I explain, like, if you're going to try and save it, you want to listen to it like just with your headphones or something, you need a WAV file. But if you're trying to like look at it and see it and show it, then you want to send them the link or whatever. The MIDI file, you don't want that most of the time. So that's cool for kids to do. And then there are other things you can play with in the settings. You can change the length, you can change the beats per bar, you can change the splits and starts on that, and things like that. You can change it from major to pentatonic to chromatic. That's sort of cool. Other things that you can do if you want. And then you can undo, you can restart, all sorts of fun stuff. But it's fun to get kids started on this and then to like talk about why they like things. So what I have my kids do is like I show them, I do that sort of think aloud where like I talk them through all my choices and why I'm doing that. And then I say, okay, you're going to get about 10 minutes or 12 minutes or whatever time. And then at the end of that time, I'm going to choose some random people or whatever to share out with the class what they've made, and we'll talk about it. So when we talk about things, sometimes kids, you can tell like they chose things because they thought it was visually appealing. And so we talk about that. That is a valid choice with this specific medium, definitely. Choosing it because it looks cool is a legitimate option, right? Like it's a legitimate choice. You're choosing it because it looks cool. Great. Okay, other people, they chose very specifically, like they went through and you could tell they were meticulous about trying to make patterns. They chose it because they liked the sound of it. Or they changed these things because they like the sound. Why do you like the woodwinds better than the drums? Or okay, well, when they stack together, it sounds better as the marimba than it does the woodwinds. Again, legitimate choices, but asking kids why helps them to think about what they like, why they like that, and then informs their choices in the future. And also asking kids those why questions helps them later, like even if they weren't the kid asked. So like if I wasn't the kid who was asked those questions, I'm still hearing that discussion about like, what do I like and why do I like it? And so like just doing this, it's like, it's sort of fun to hear it initially, but what does it sound like when you play it? Does it actually sound good? Is it worth doing this, or should I go out and spend the time to do the blocks and things? Like it's good to hear those conversations because then they actually internalize that, and like it helps them become better composers, arrangers, and critical thinkers. Chrome Music Lab is free. It's a web app. It works online. Sorry, it's not an app. It's a website, and it's musiclab.chromeexperiments.com. You could just search in Google Chrome Music Lab, or I did put the link on my links page. That's all there if you want it. But this is just sort of a quick idea about like how I use it and why I use it like that. Let me flip this around and let me see if there were questions or things that popped up while I was talking about and see if I missed anything important. Okay, let me see if I can flip y'all. Okay. Bam, let me try and flip this around. Sorry, flipping these cameras always works so great. No, it never works. It never works well. It always is a little iffy. Okay, let me go through here and see if I thought I saw somebody popped in a comment. You can make it longer by changing the settings. Oh, I'm assuming that was on the rhythm part, on the rhythm builder thing. Using a couple of those fun things for vocal warm-ups. That's cool. Monica, I didn't see when your comment came in, so I'm not exactly sure which of the Google apps you did. Noisy Paintbox about Kandinsky, yep. The Girl Who Heard Colors about Synesthesia, yep. I actually did a college paper about synesthesia. It is the most fascinating thing. Cool. Okay, and I don't know that I saw any questions over here on Instagram. If you had them, send me, or if you have them, pop them in and we'll talk about them. But I don't think I saw any over here. So let's zoom through and see what else we can get to today. Okay, so Chrome Music is fun, and it's fun for the kids, especially for my kids who are at home, who are learning at home, who are through Zoom. It's fun because they can do it and then they can share with the class so easily. And also, like, it's pretty contained. It's pretty easy to manipulate. It's pretty easy for them to handle, and it's Google, so like it functions well. It doesn't crash. I mean, like it doesn't have issues. That's one of the reasons I like it. But again, the thing about if you just say like, okay, here's Chrome Music Lab, go do it. You know, like there are so many options, and not a lot of them are like something that kids can latch onto. So it's easy for a lot of them to like try something out, lose interest, try something out, lose interest, maybe find something. And so I like to let them explore, but sort of focus that, especially for like this specific idea or GarageBand. There's just so much, and so trying to give them like a focus of what they could explore and try is really great. If you're listening later on in the week and you're a podcast person, I'm so sorry you couldn't see any of what we just did, because like I said, part of this is fun because you can see it as you're doing it. That's what kids love it. So come back and watch the video portion and you can see some of that. Okay, let's talk about, oh yeah, I have time for two more things. So my second graders, we've been doing a lot with like notation. We've done a lot of like identifying different things like fermata or double bar line, repeat sign, just different things along the way. We've also been expanding our understanding of note value. So my second graders are up to quarter notes, eighth notes, single eighth notes, half notes, half rests, whole notes, whole rests, and a couple other things thrown in there, right? And so I wanted a way to like sort of let them have fun, let them try a game, but also like expand on their knowledge or apply their knowledge. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to have a way to explore a little bit and also utilize the room. So in the back of my room, all along these cabinets, I have a big vocabulary wall. It's color coded. It's like, it's from my Teachers Pay Teacher store, but it's up there. It's something I've had for a long time, and it's color coded. So like all the and it's grouped, so like all the tempo words are together, all the dynamics words are together, all of the like basic symbols are together, right? And so I wanted kids to have a chance to apply their knowledge. So I have these interactive games. I know I've shared about them before. I just wanted to share how I'm using them differently. So the interactive games, which is really fun, kids just tap and then they get to like, this one is instruments. You can do some on like interactive games for symbols. I couldn't think of the word. For like symbols, dynamics, tempo, all of that, right? And so what my kids would do is like they went in and they would like do the note value ones, and they did great because it was all the stuff that we had already learned. And there were a couple little expansion things where they're like, what's a dotted half note or whatever. So we had to like take basically that, it's like, oh, well, half note. Do you see the half note there? And there's one with a dot. Oh, okay. So we're like inferring stuff like that. But then, then some kids would like get finished early, or we'd have a minute late, minute more or whatever, a couple minutes more. And I was like, I don't want to like change to something else. Like how can I extend this? And so I hadn't really planned on them doing dynamics or planned on them doing like symbols, but I needed like something to extend. And so in the same game, like there's the game of the note value, and then along with that there's also the symbols game, the dynamics game, the tempo game. So I was like, I'll try the symbol game. And some of them were really easy to do. Bar line, double bar line, repeat sign. There were some things they didn't know, like accent or crescendo, decrescendo, different things in there. And so I was like, well, there's the vocabulary wall. All the answers are there, except there was like maybe one thing that wasn't up there. I'm trying to think. There was something that like I had just left off accidentally or whatever off my word wall. So I was like, well, look at the word wall. So all the kids just swiveled around. They all faced the word wall. And then if there was ever one they couldn't find or they didn't know, I was like, find it up on the wall. And it was so interesting because they used the word wall like as an anchor chart. They used it the exact way that's intended to be used, for reference, to keep them going, and then just help them with the game. And so there are a couple different games that I have, and one of them, like, they can't just like choose a random answer. I hate those, where kids are like smash, 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 and like, like really trying to find the answer. There's one where like they can't fake it. They have to like actually locate the answer and figure it out. And so the kids would look up and they would figure it out. So they had to go like by category, try and find things. It was the most interesting, most illuminating, and it was fun because kids were like, they were like sort of into it. They were like, it's like a, not hide and seek, but they were like, I am on like national treasure hunt. I must find the fermata. Where's the fermata? Or actually, it was more like, where's the fermate? Or one kid said something, I can't remember exactly, but some weird, version. So it was fun because they got to use the game, but really they were utilizing the word wall. It was like a way for them to explore the word wall, and it was so cool. And it was just something that happened accidentally where I was like, I gotta extend this. And so then for the rest of my classes, I was like, I'm gonna make sure that we do this other thing a little bit shorter so that we make sure we get to the thing where we can actually use our iPads on purpose to like explore that word wall. So if you already have a game like that, or if you have a game like a bingo game, or if you have an interactive game like this, you can use it in other ways. And so like the ones that I had, I just used it in conjunction with my word wall, and bam, it was an extra activity. I see yes. Do you sell it on TBT? Yes. And I think I have a link to that on my links page. Actually, I know because I pulled out all the like interactive games that say like music, symbols, and vocabulary. So if you go to that links page, you can go right to those vocabularies, like symbols game. It's like, it says like music, symbols, and vocabulary, but that's like, it has tempo, it has dynamics, it has note value, it has all that sort of stuff in there. Okay, and then one more thing that was another one of those like, it just happened, but now it's like going to be a fixture in my class every year. So one of my second grade classes in the last rotation got through the content like way faster than the others. And okay, two reasons. One, they were just a little bit quicker, they were better behaved, things just moved more swiftly. Also, later on in the rotation, you get better at teaching the lesson, and so like things just ran more smoothly, and like we were just done earlier, which is great, right? But then also I was like, what do we do? Sorry, on Instagram, hopped on late. How do you watch this later? It's archived on YouTube, on Instagram. You click the link in profile and find all the videos. But it's archived on Instagram, on Facebook, and on YouTube, or you can listen to the podcast. So I had a little extra time at the end of this lesson. I was like, what do I do? Because I had like ran through all the things that I really wanted to do, and it was a day where I had to like tape, like not tape anymore, but like record like 4 different classes for their like, I'm doing a special mashup iMovie video and sending home to parents. Like I had been like recording all day, and something else had happened, and like my car's in the shop, like all these things that I was like, all my like go-to, like this is what you do, this is what you do, this is what you do. I was like, I'd either run through them, or I didn't have them handy, or I was just like, my brain was wiped. And so I was like, we're gonna play the mystery instrument game. And they were like, ooh. This is like a class that was like, they are already in for it, because like we just zoomed through our lessons, like they were like doing great. So they're like, mystery instrument, okay. And I was like, yeah. So like at the front of my class, I have these three shelf like Rubbermaid towers, and in each one I have different non-pitch percussion instruments. And like this year I had spent time like labeling each one and like laminating the labels, putting them in nice, getting whatever. I got like 3 more of these little tower things, and so I had just all these shelves filled with, or drawers filled with instruments. It wasn't really a mystery instrument because they're all labeled, but whatever. So what I said to kids was, when I call your name, you can come up, open one of the drawers, and you got to take an instrument out of the drawer. If you open a drawer, you must take an instrument from that drawer. You cannot choose a different drawer, because there are going to be the kids who are like, open, close, open, close, open, close, like until they find what they want. So this makes them be a little more selective. So I was like, whatever drawer you open, you must take an instrument out of that drawer. But if you open a drawer and it's empty, then you can move on and choose a different one, right? So like if I have like one slapstick and some kid has already pulled it and another kid opens that drawer, well, so there's that. Also, I said in all the drawers are labeled, but in some drawers there's an extra instrument that's not on the label, because like, okay, I have enough drawers for lots of things. Like I have multiple tone blocks, I have multiple finger symbols, I have multiple whatever. But like I have one thunder tube, so where does it go? I know where I put it. I put it in with the vibroslap or whatever. Like I put it in with like the weird miscellaneous potpourri instruments. But the kids don't know that. So like if they open up a drawer and there's like a, something with the cabasas that's not a cabasa, or there's, different kind of whatever. Ooh, cool, that's a special mystery instrument or whatever. And so like they can pull that out and use it. They don't know what we're going to use it for. They just know they got to choose one instrument. So that's sort of the fun of like, they go up, they get to choose, they get to pull out any instrument. I don't care. Take it back to your spot. And then, so what we did with that was, in the first minute or two, I said, you get to explore, you get to try the instrument, play it lots of different ways, find different ways to make sound, choose your favorite way, and then we're going to do something with it. So like if a kid gets a tone block, right? So like you could play, I could say like, that's the way to play it. Or instead, it's more interesting if the kid like tries, playing on the end, playing on the side. Kids want to like put them out inside and try and stir. Kids will want to play all over on different sides. So what I say to kids is like, play through, try it, but decide what your favorite way to play is, what makes the sound that you like the most. So, they got to try different stuff, see what they like. Maybe instead of using the round part of the mount, they use the other. I don't care. I let them try. I let them decide what they like the best. For some kids, that's easy. The tone block, pretty easy. Wood block, easy. If you get the vibroslap, you gotta figure that out. Or I say, if a minute has passed and you still can't figure out how to play it, I'll help. You can ask for help. But some kids, I'm like, I don't know, try it. So for the tone block, they'll be doing this, or they'll be doing different things. Really interesting instruments like the cabasa, they might shake. Okay, if that's the way you like, and then they might also see other kids, turning it or rolling it or whatever. They might find that they like different ways to play. Fine. So I let kids sort of explore, see what they like, see what their favorite thing is. And then, once we've figured that out, then sometimes maybe I'll highlight different instruments. I'll say like, if you have an instrument, from the cabasa drawer, or if you have I'll pick out certain things and highlight certain things maybe on purpose. Like, this is something that we saw in the video today, or this is something that, we talked about yesterday, or whatever. So it's like fun to sort of highlight certain things. But then we apply. So I'll say, great, I'm going to give you a rhythm and you get to play it. Ta, 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 dee, ta. And whatever instrument they have to figure out a way to do that. Ta, dee, ta, dee, ta. So you can echo like that. I could play an instrument and they could echo on whatever instrument they have. So like I play, they got to do it on theirs. You could do, instead of 4 beats, you could do an 8-beat rhythm. So I could do, you could make this a lesson about dynamics. You could make it a lesson about speed, tempo. You could do, you could talk about how you classify instruments. Is it a scraper? Is it a shaker? Is it a whatever? It can be different. You can do whatever you want with this lesson, because again, it was like, for me, it was like mystery instrument lesson. And so we took the instruments, and then they had the most fun with it, and I was like, great, it just happened. So then again, it was like, so we were able to do so much review with it, we were able to do so much exploration with it, that then I started tying it in on purpose to other lessons so that kids can get that chance to explore. Because again, anytime you can pull out a non-pitched instrument, or any instrument, anytime you can pull out an instrument, kids are going to remember it more, kids are going to enjoy it. What you can get out of this lesson, you can get rhythm, you can get echoing, you can get improvisation, you can get instrument identification, you can get sound, how sound is made. There are so many things you can get out of this silly little lesson, and then kids think it's so much fun because they're like, I got to choose the drawer that it came from. I got to choose the mystery instrument. And they get to see if they can figure out how to make them play. So it's just a super fun thing that you can do. One other thing that sometimes I'll do, depending on if we have extra time or not, we'll separate out, like, if your instrument has metal on it, raise your hand. And for some kids, that's easy, like there's metal here. For some kids, you know, they have to decide, like, is it metal, is it not? The cymbals are pretty easy metal. You know, if it's plastic, you know, raise your hand. Well, some kids, they're like, is this wood or is this plastic? You know, is it like because it's like a, you know, wood with like a lacquer or what, you know, so like they have to sort of decide, like, is this, where does this fall? So it's a lot of classifying, it's a lot of trying, it's a lot of like exploring, and you can take this any direction you want. And again, what's nice is, like, it's the mystery instrument. So like if you're like, well, I would like to do more rhythm things, but I don't have a whole class set of XYZ, this is cool because kids just come and choose. If you have like 2 sets of finger cymbals, well, cool. You know, do you have some rhythm sticks and some other stuff that you can have so every kid can have an instrument? Great. If it's not all the same instrument, that's fine because it's the mystery instrument, so they might, you know, choose whatever. So this was super fun for my kids. They've asked to do it again, and I'm just going to take different versions of it. What I did is like a tag on in this new version is like we did rhythm reading and then playing. So it was like another application of that just onto the mystery instrument. They had to choose a different instrument this time or pull from a different drawer. It's just super fun, and they liked the ability to do that. One other add-on that I did was all my kids had iPads, so I had them take pictures of themselves with the instrument, holding the instrument or whatever, and that was something I shared with parents through Seesaw. So again, even more applications and fun things you can do with it that, like, if you try it, you know, what else can you do with it? If you try this, please come back to this video and leave a comment of like what you did and how it worked, if it worked, or how it imploded or how it didn't work. I'd love to hear, because I'm trying to find different ways to use this activity in a way that's sort of fun and fruitful for kids. Okay, that's about time. I know, let me just say one more time, next week is my last Musical Mondays of the school year. So if you have questions, if you have comments, if you have thoughts, please come back. I'm going to add a post on Facebook. I'm going to try and do it tonight, where you can like leave questions, leave thoughts, so that we can discuss more of that next week. Or if you're like, tell me more about XYZ, or can you, you know, what's worked well, you know, like whatever question you have. Leave that in the comments here tonight, or you can put it in the post I'm going to add to Facebook tonight, so that I can next week do some of those questions along with lesson plans. Okay, that's a lot for one night. I hope you had a fun time and maybe caught some things along the way. If you have questions, of course, you can email me or leave them here on the video. But I hope I'll see you next week for my last Musical Mondays. And if you're a Mississippi music teacher, I hope I'll see you at MSMEA on Saturday. Bye, everyone. Thanks for coming along tonight.